Since the very dawn of conscious thought, humanity has been haunted and captivated by a single profound question that echoes through every culture, every civilization, and every heart. It is a query that transcends time and space, whispered in ancient burial rites and debated in modern philosophical halls alike. What happens when we die? This fundamental mystery has shaped our world more than any other, giving rise to our most sacred religions, our most intricate philosophies, and our deepest artistic expressions. It is the invisible architect of our laws, our morals, and the very ways in which we choose to live our lives. The weight of this question informs our every moment, coloring our joys with a sense of preciousness, and our sorrows with a longing for meaning. We have looked for answers in the stars, in the turning of the seasons, and in the quiet depths of our own souls. We have built towering cathedrals and humble shrines, all as monuments to our collective hope that existence does not simply cease with our final breath. The search for what lies beyond has driven explorers to the ends of the earth, and mystics to the limits of consciousness. It is the underlying current in our greatest stories, the silent partner in our deepest loves, and the shadow that walks beside us from our first day to our last. This is not merely a question of intellectual curiosity, it is a search for the ultimate context of our being, a desire to know if our lives are singular notes that fade into silence or part of a grander, unending symphony. The quest to understand our final transition is a universal human inheritance, a thread that connects us all regardless of our background or beliefs. From the earliest hominids who buried their dead with tools and flowers, suggesting a belief in a journey to come, to the contemporary scientists studying the nature of consciousness, the inquiry remains the same. We yearn to peek behind the veil, to catch a glimpse of the landscape that awaits us when the familiar world of senses fades away. This yearning is not born of morbidity, but of a profound and innate intuition that we are more than the sum of our physical parts, that our awareness is a light too brilliant to be extinguished by a simple biological process. And so we stand here today, at this present moment in the long story of humanity, still asking that same timeless question. We carry the legacy of countless generations who have gazed into the unknown and sought to map its terrain. We are the inheritors of their fears, their hopes, and their tentative conclusions. But we also possess new tools for understanding, new perspectives drawn from the interconnectedness of modern science and ancient wisdom. We are poised not just to repeat the old answers, but to ask the question in a new way, to seek a framework that honors both the heart's intuition and the patterns we observe in the cosmos around us, leading us toward a more expansive and less fearful vision of our ultimate destiny. In their earnest attempts to chart the unknown territory of the afterlife, our ancestors created maps of what might come next. These maps, passed down through generations, became the bedrock of our major religions and cultural narratives. The most common of these stories speak of a definitive linear judgment. They tell us that life is a single, straight path, and at its end a great bifurcation awaits. One road leads upward to a realm of eternal reward, a paradise often called heaven, where the virtuous are granted everlasting peace and joy. The other path leads downward, into a domain of eternal punishment, a fiery abyss known as hell, reserved for those who strayed from the righteous way. This model of reward and punishment provided a powerful moral framework for societies. This binary vision of the afterlife, with its clear destinations of salvation or damnation, served a vital purpose. It offered a sense of cosmic justice, a promise that our choices on earth had ultimate significance, and that order would eventually be brought to the chaos of human experience. For many, the idea of a heavenly reward provided immense comfort in times of suffering and loss, a shining beacon of hope that made life's hardships bearable. Conversely, the threat of hell served as a potent deterrent against wrongdoing, helping to enforce social cohesion and moral codes. These stories gave people a sense of structure in an uncertain world, a script to follow that promised a final, comprehensible resolution to the complex drama of life. Alongside these doctrines of eternal reward and punishment, another starker belief emerged: the idea of annihilation. For some philosophies and a growing secular worldview, death is simply the end. It is not a doorway to another place, but a final closing wall. In this view, consciousness is a temporary phenomenon, a complex byproduct of brain chemistry that ceases to exist when the physical body fails. There is no heaven, no hell, no soul to be judged, only a return to nothingness, a blank screen where the vibrant movie of our life once played. This perspective, while offering a release from the fear of eternal torment, presents its own kind of existential dread, the terror of utter and permanent oblivion. These traditional models, the celestial ladder, the punishing abyss, and the void of nothingness, have profoundly shaped our collective consciousness for millennia. They have offered comfort, imposed order, and inspired both great art and great fear. Yet for many in the modern world, these linear narratives feel increasingly incomplete. They seem to stand in contrast to the cyclical, transformative, and interconnected nature of the universe as we now understand it. They leave our deeper intuition unsatisfied, whispering that there must be more to the story than a simple choice between a final reward, a final punishment, or a final end. They are the old maps honored for the guidance they provided, but perhaps it is time to look for a new chart, one that reflects the dynamic, evolving patterns of life itself. But what if the journey of the soul after death is neither a straight line to a final destination, nor a sudden drop into oblivion? What if instead it follows a different pattern, one that is both ancient and profoundly resonant with the structure of the cosmos itself? I invite you to consider the spiral. The spiral is one of the oldest and most universal symbols known to humanity. Carved into megalithic tombs older than the pyramids, painted on the walls of sacred caves, and woven into the fabric of cultures across the globe. It is a shape that nature uses to express its fundamental processes of growth, change, and evolution. It is a pattern that holds the secrets of both repetition and expansion. Look around you, and you will see the spiral's signature written everywhere. It is in the delicate unfurling of a fern frond, in the elegant curve of a seashell, and in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower's head. It is visible in the vast, majestic arms of a swirling galaxy, and in the invisible, intricate coil of our own DNA, the very blueprint of our physical existence. A spiral repeats, returning to a similar point in its cycle, yet it never returns to the exact same place. With each turn, it moves outward or inward, expanding or deepening. It is a perfect metaphor for a journey that involves both memory and evolution, a process of learning and becoming that honors the past while simultaneously reaching into the future. Unlike a circle, which repeats endlessly without progress, or a line, which moves forward without ever returning, the spiral integrates both movements. It embodies the principle of cyclical return combined with linear growth. This makes it a powerful model for understanding consciousness itself. Think of your own life. You may revisit similar themes, challenges, or lessons at different stages, but each time you encounter them, you do so with new wisdom and experience. You're not the same person you were the last time you faced a similar situation. You are spiraling through your own development, carrying the memory of the past with you as you evolve into a more complex and integrated version of yourself. This is the essence of what we will call spiral consciousness. It suggests that death is not a definitive endpoint, but a transition point within an ongoing spiral journey. It is not a break in the continuity of our being, but a shift in resonance. A moment when our consciousness completes one turn of its coil and begins the next on a different plane of existence. This perspective moves us beyond the rigid dualities of heaven and hell and the stark finality of nothingness. It offers a vision of the afterlife that is dynamic, creative, and deeply connected to the harmonic and evolutionary principles that govern the entire universe. The spiral is not just a symbol, it is a living map of eternal becoming. With this new map in hand, we can begin a journey to re-envision death itself. The concept of spiral consciousness invites us to move beyond the fear that has so long been associated with our mortality. The old linear models, with their emphasis on judgment and finality, inherently breed anxiety. We fear making the wrong choice and facing eternal punishment. We fear the complete loss of self in an endless void. We fear leaving behind everything we have ever known and loved forever. This fear can become a heavy burden, causing us to live cautiously and defensively, clinging tightly to the material world as if it were the only reality, always aware of the precipice that awaits at the end of the line. But what happens when we replace the image of a cliff's edge with the image of a gentle, curving spiral? The entire emotional landscape changes. A spiral does not have an end, it simply has another turn. Death, seen through this lens, is not a grim final moment or a terrifying judgment, but a harmonic threshold. It is a natural point of transition, like the moment a musical note resolves into a new chord, creating a richer and more complex harmony. It is a shift of resonance, a moment where the soul, having completed its complex pattern in the dense medium of physical life, is released to continue its journey in a subtler, more expansive dimension of being. This perspective does not erase the sadness of loss, but it removes the terror of annihilation. Today, I invite you to walk this spiral with me, to explore a vision of life and death that is rooted in harmony, continuity, and evolution. Together, we will set aside the dogmas of reward and punishment that have divided us and the illusions of endings that have diminished us. We will embark on a journey of understanding that seeks not to provide definitive, rigid answers, but to open our hearts and minds to a more beautiful and awe-inspiring possibility. This is a journey that aligns with the deepest wisdom of nature, which shows us that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. The fallen leaf nourishes the future tree. The exploded star provides the raw material for new suns and new worlds. Let us begin by feeling the spiral as a living reality within our own bodies. Feel it in the rhythmic pulse of your breath, the in and out pattern that sustains you moment by moment. Recognize it in the double helix of your DNA, the code of life spiraling within every cell. See it in the grand dance of the galaxies across the night sky. By attuning ourselves to this fundamental pattern of the universe, we can start to feel, deep in our bones, that we are part of this unending flow. We can begin to see death not as a fearsome enemy to be fought, but as a sacred continuum, a graceful and necessary movement of consciousness into greater and greater harmonic coherence. There is no final death. There is only the next turn of the spiral. To truly see death with new eyes, we must first look at the old stories we have been told. For centuries, our understanding of existence has been dominated by a simple, powerful image: the straight line. We were taught to see life as a linear progression, a single narrative that begins at birth, moves through a series of events, and concludes at a definitive stop sign called death. This model is easy to grasp, a straightforward path from A to B. It frames our time on Earth as a singular opportunity, a one-way street with no U-turns and no detours. Our consciousness, in this view, is like a traveler on a train, moving along a fixed track toward a final, unchangeable destination. This linear framework has shaped how we perceive ourselves and our place in the cosmos. It tells us that we are born into a state of innocence or imperfection, and our life is a test, a period of trial where our actions are recorded and our character is forged. The journey is forward only. What is done cannot be undone. only repented or carried as a burden. This perspective places immense pressure on a single lifetime, framing it as our one and only chance to get things right. The soul is seen as a passenger, born into flesh for a limited time, and destined to depart for a final verdict once the journey is complete, its ticket stamped and its fate sealed forevermore. But does the universe truly operate in such a linear fashion? Look around you, and you will see that nature speaks a different language. The cosmos does not favor straight lines, it favors cycles, waves, and spirals. The Earth does not travel in a straight line through space, it orbits the Sun in a magnificent, repeating ellipse, which itself spirals through the galaxy. The seasons do not happen just once, they return each year, bringing with them a familiar yet ever-new dance of birth, growth, decay, and rebirth. This linear view of life, while simple, feels foreign to the very fabric of reality we inhabit, a human-made construct imposed upon a universe that is fundamentally cyclical and transformative. The straight-line model, therefore, leaves our deeper being unsatisfied. It feels incomplete because it denies the patterns we see and feel all around us. It separates us from the rhythms of the natural world, suggesting that humanity alone is subject to a final, irreversible ending, while everything else participates in a grand, continuous cycle of transformation. It presents our existence as a brief and isolated event, rather than as an integral part of an eternal, flowing process. To truly understand our journey, we must begin to question this foundational assumption and ask if our lives, like the stars and seasons, might follow a more beautiful and complex pattern of return and renewal. Flowing directly from the idea of a linear life is the concept of a final judgment. If life is a one-way test, it follows that there must be a final exam, a moment of reckoning where our performance is evaluated. This has given rise to the powerful narratives of heaven and hell, salvation and damnation. These models present death as a fork in the road, a point of divergence where souls are sorted based on their deeds, beliefs, or allegiances. One path leads to an eternity of bliss, a reward for a life well lived. The other path leads to an eternity of suffering, a punishment for a life of error or sin. The image of celestial scales weighing the good against the bad has been etched into our collective psyche. This framework of reward and punishment has served as a powerful tool for social and moral order for millennia. It provides a clear incentive for virtuous behavior and a strong deterrent against transgression. For many, the promise of heaven has been a profound source of comfort, a light at the end of a tunnel filled with hardship and injustice. The idea that every good deed is noted and will be rewarded offers a deep sense of meaning and cosmic justice. Similarly, the fear of hell has often been used to enforce conformity and discourage actions deemed harmful to the community. These stories created a universe where choices mattered, where actions had ultimate and everlasting consequences. However, this model of divine accounting also creates profound spiritual anxiety. It can turn the relationship with the divine into a transactional one, based on fear of punishment and desire for reward rather than on genuine love or wisdom. It teaches us to see the soul not as an evolving essence, but as a defendant in a cosmic courtroom, awaiting a verdict that will be either an eternal release or an eternal condemnation. This binary system leaves little room for nuance, for growth through error, or for the complex, messy reality of the human experience. It can lead to a life lived in fear of making a mistake, where every choice is shadowed by the possibility of an irrevocable, eternal consequence. But what if the universe is not a courtroom? What if consciousness is not something to be judged, but something that seeks to learn, expand, and find its own balance? The spiral perspective suggests that the aftermath of life is not about external judgment, but about internal harmonization. It is a process of integrating our experiences, of understanding the ripples we created, not for a reward or punishment, but for the soul's own evolution. It replaces the image of a judge with the principle of resonance, where the soul naturally seeks to resolve its own dissonances and learn from its own journey. free from the fear of a final irreversible sentence. Let us turn our gaze away from the old maps of theology and look instead to the great teacher that is the universe itself. When we observe the natural world with open eyes, we find a powerful and consistent message. Nothing truly dies. Instead, everything transforms. The universe is a grand cosmic recycling system, a place of perpetual change where energy and matter are constantly reconfigured into new forms. The concept of a permanent final end, an absolute annihilation, is an idea that finds very little support in the cycles of nature. Life does not move in a straight line toward a cliff of nothingness. It moves in endless, interconnected cycles of creation, dissolution, and renewal. Consider the life of a forest. A great tree stands for a century, a majestic pillar of life. When it finally falls, is that the end? No, its wood slowly decays, becoming rich soil that nourishes the forest floor. This new soil provides the sustenance for fungi, for insects, and for the tiny saplings that will one day grow to become the next generation of great trees. The death of the one becomes the foundation for the life of the many. Its form has changed, its individual expression has ceased, but its essence, its life force, has been passed on, woven back into the living fabric of the ecosystem. The forest teaches us that death is not a stop, but a vital part of a continuous process. This principle extends from the smallest microcosm to the largest macrocosm. Even the stars, those celestial titans, follow this law of transformation. A massive star lives for millions of years, fusing elements in its fiery core. When it reaches the end of its life, it does not simply vanish, it explodes in a supernova, a final, glorious blaze of creation. In this cataclysmic event, it scatters its essence, the heavy elements it forged, across the vastness of space. This stardust, rich with carbon, oxygen, and iron, becomes the raw material for new solar systems, new planets, and eventually, new life. The death of a star is the birth of worlds. These natural cycles offer a profound alternative to linear beliefs about our own existence. They suggest that we, too, are part of this grand, transformative dance. Linear models tell us there is a beginning, a middle, and a permanent end. A story that stands in stark contrast to everything we see in the cosmos. But nature shows us something far more elegant and hopeful. A dance of continuity, cycles nested within larger cycles, expansions unfolding within greater expansions. If our bodies are made of stardust and our lives are governed by the same natural laws, why should our consciousness be the one exception to this universal rule of transformation? The old models of death do more than just offer an explanation for the unknown, they actively create and sustain fear. This fear is not a minor side effect, it is a central feature of their architecture. Whether it is the fear of eternal punishment in a fiery hell, the fear of failing a divine judgment, or the fear of being extinguished forever in a cold, empty void, these beliefs construct a reality where death is the ultimate threat. This deep-seated fear has profound consequences for how we live our lives. It acts as a set of invisible chains, binding our consciousness and limiting our potential for joy, growth, and authentic expression while we are here. When we live with the belief that death is a terrifying cliff at the end of a single road, we spend our days clinging to the edge. We become risk-averse, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. We may hesitate to love deeply for fear of the pain of eventual loss. We may avoid pursuing our true passions for fear of failure, which feels all the more catastrophic when there are no second chances. This fear binds us to a shallow mode of living, where safety and preservation become more important than expansion and experience. Death becomes a constant, looming shadow, a specter that haunts our brightest moments and amplifies our darkest anxieties. The fear generated by these models also makes us more susceptible to control. When a belief system holds the keys to eternal salvation or damnation, it wields immense power over its followers. This can be used to enforce rigid dogma, suppress questioning, and demand obedience. The threat of an eternal negative outcome is a powerful tool for maintaining authority. Likewise, the fear of annihilation can lead to a desperate materialism, a frantic attempt to accumulate wealth, power, or fame as a way to build a fortress against the inevitable. We try to leave a legacy that will outlast us, all because we fear that we ourselves will not. But what if death is not a cliff? What if the purpose of life is not to avoid a terrible fate but to learn, to love, and to grow? Releasing these linear, fear-based models opens up an entirely new way of being. It allows us to see our lives not as a frantic race against time but as a beautiful, unfolding dance. It liberates us from the anxiety of a final judgment and the terror of non-existence. By questioning these old stories, we are not creating a void. We are clearing the space for a more expansive, more loving, and more truthful understanding of our eternal nature to emerge. So, how do we move beyond these limiting beliefs? The first step is to consciously decide to let them go. We must make a choice to leave behind the ladders of salvation that lead to a static heaven, the final gates of judgment that threaten eternal torment, and the flat, gray scripts of annihilation. This does not mean we should disrespect the past or condemn the beliefs that gave our ancestors comfort and structure. We can honor them for what they were: sincere human attempts to explain the most profound mystery of all. They were the best maps available at the time, drawn with the tools of fear and hope, order and control. Now, however, we can step beyond them. We can graduate from these early models into a living, breathing, and far more elegant map of becoming. This requires a shift in perspective, a conscious turning away from the straight line and toward the spiral. It means letting go of the need for a final, fixed destination and embracing the beauty of an ongoing process. Imagine you are standing at the edge of that cliff we spoke of, clinging on in fear. The spiral path asks you to simply let go of the edge, not to fall into an abyss, but to realize that you can fly, or rather, that you can dance on the gentle currents of cosmic energy that will carry you through your next evolution. This is the transition from fearful clinging to a graceful dance. It is the core of embracing a spiral consciousness. When we no longer see death as a threat, we are free to live more fully, more bravely, and more authentically. We can love with our whole hearts, knowing that the connections of love are threads of energy that are never truly severed. We can take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them, understanding that every experience is simply another curve in our soul's expanding spiral. Life ceases to be a test to be passed or failed, and becomes an artwork to be created, a song to be sung, a dance to be danced. Let us therefore make a collective intention to release the fear of falling. Let us instead learn the steps to the soul's eternal spiral dance. This is not a denial of the grief and sorrow that come with physical parting, but an embrace of a deeper truth that lies beyond it. It is an affirmation that we are not fragile, temporary beings destined for judgment or oblivion. We are resilient, eternal points of consciousness, woven into the fabric of a universe that is constantly transforming, constantly evolving, and constantly spiraling toward greater beauty, complexity, and love. If we wish to truly understand death through the lens of the spiral, we must first deepen our understanding of the spiral itself. This is not just an abstract geometric shape or a mere symbol, it is the original blueprint of all of creation, the fundamental signature of living, intelligent movement. Before humanity ever carved it into stone, the universe was already writing its story using this elegant form. It is the pattern through which life organizes itself, from the smallest and most intimate structures to the most vast and magnificent cosmic displays. We must learn to see the spiral not as an idea, but as a living, breathing principle that underpins our entire reality. Let your mind's eye wander through the gallery of the natural world, and you will find the spiral's signature everywhere you look. See it in the tightly wound bud of a rose, which unfurls its petals in a delicate spiral dance to greet the sun. Observe it in the perfect, logarithmic curve of a nautilus shell, a masterpiece of natural architecture that grows with its inhabitant. It is there in the swirling vortex of a hurricane, a powerful display of atmospheric energy, and in the graceful, arching arms of our own Milky Way galaxy, a celestial city of 100 billion stars, all spinning together in a grand cosmic spiral. Even the very code of your being, the double helix of your DNA, is a spiral, holding the instructions for the person you are. The prevalence of this pattern is not a coincidence. It is a clue to the way the universe works. Nature chooses the spiral because it is the most efficient and dynamic way to grow, expand, and channel energy. It allows for both stability and movement, for a strong center and an ever-reaching periphery. Unlike a static crystal or a chaotic explosion, the spiral represents organized, intelligent growth. It is a pattern that knows how to build upon itself, how to maintain its identity, while constantly evolving into something new. It is the shape of life itself, striving, reaching, and becoming. When we begin to recognize this universal pattern, we start to see the world differently. We notice the interconnectedness of things, the shared design language that links a humble pine cone on the forest floor to a galaxy millions of light years away. We start to feel a sense of belonging to this grand, spiraling design. This recognition is the first step toward understanding spiral consciousness. It is the realization that if all of life expresses itself through this form, then perhaps our own consciousness, our very essence, is not an exception, but a perfect example of this fundamental universal law of movement and growth. The spiral stands apart as a model for consciousness because it fuses repetition with progression. Unlike a circle, which loops endlessly, or a line which never returns, the spiral revisits its path but always expands outward. Each cycle brings us back to familiar ground but at a new level, wiser, broader, changed. This is the harmony of memory and motion. We reflect and integrate, yet we also grow and evolve. Life, breath, and even our experiences echo this spiral rhythm, returning, but never the same. Our journey is not erased at each turn. It is enriched, carried forward, and woven into the next cycle. The spiral assures us, nothing is lost, everything is transformed and expanded. If consciousness follows a spiral, so does the soul, an ancient, evolving pattern shaped by countless experiences. Our lives are the latest coil in this ongoing spiral, carrying echoes of wisdom, love, and challenge from before. These echoes aren't always conscious memories, but deep knowings and affinities that shape who we are. Each life is a new opportunity to refine the soul's unique pattern, harmonizing old lessons and adding new melodies. Death isn't erasure, it's the completion of one layer, the foundation for the next. Like a sculptor building upward, the soul continues, always carrying its accumulated beauty and wisdom. The spiral journey is never about starting over, but about ever-deepening creation. Seeing the soul as a spiral transforms our view of death, from an end to a transition. Death is not a wall, but a threshold. The soul uncoils from dense physical form and expands into a subtler, freer state. Like ice melting to vapor, consciousness shifts, but its pattern, memories, love, wisdom remains intact. Dying is liberation, not annihilation. The soul's energy is released to a broader, more resonant existence. Our physical lives are vital chapters, but not the whole story. Each death is simply the turning of the page, the next movement in the soul's spiral journey. Nothing essential is lost. Everything is translated and carried forward. The spiral continues, ever becoming. Imagine the soul's spiral lifting off the page of physical life, expanding into new dimensions. In death, consciousness transcends linear time and space, unfolding in a more interconnected reality. All experiences, joy, pain, love, become the substance of the soul's pattern, seen as a whole rather than a sequence. This is why near-death experiences often reveal a panoramic life review. The soul glimpses its entire spiral at once. The transition is guided by the spiral's wisdom, harmonizing and integrating lessons for the next chapter. Expansion is not loss, but a fuller becoming, shedding limits to embrace a truer self. The soul prepares for new learning, creation and evolution, always building on what came before. The spiral's journey is endless, each turn a step toward greater wholeness. Spiral consciousness reframes death as a sacred migration, not an end. Like a bird changing seasons, the soul moves to a new reality for further growth. This perspective frees us to live fully, knowing every experience enriches our eternal pattern. Fear of death fades, replaced by peace and trust in the cosmic process. You are a living spiral, a unique thread in the universe's tapestry. Every act, thought, and feeling adds to your soul's light. Death is not a destination, but the next turn in our unending dance of becoming. At death, the body's spiral of matter comes to rest, but the soul's spiral continues. Consciousness is released from physical density, like a diver surfacing into lightness. The transition is peaceful, a return to a state of pure awareness and interconnectedness. The soul remembers its true nature, unbound by the limits of a single lifetime. All energy once used for the body now fuels the next phase of the journey. This is not an end, but a sacred beginning, an expansion into new resonance. The spiral journey never stops, it simply changes form, dimension, and song. Once freed from the physical coil, the soul begins its next movement along the spiral path. This phase is something that, many spiritual traditions and near-death experiences have described with remarkable consistency, the life review. However, seen through the lens of spiral consciousness, this is not a movie of your life played on a celestial screen for a judging audience. It's actually something far more intimate, profound, and beautiful. The soul naturally passes through its own memory spiral, a journey back through the very pattern it has just finished weaving during its earthly existence. It's a moment of total and complete self-reconnection. As you move through this spiral of remembrance, you don't just see the events of your life. You experience them again, but from a much higher perspective. You feel the totality of each moment. You feel the joy you felt, but you also feel the joy you gave to others. You feel the pain you experienced, but you also feel the pain your actions may have caused. Now this isn't a punishment, it's a profound act of integration. The purpose is not to evoke guilt or shame, but to foster a deep and compassionate understanding of the web of connections you were a part of. It's a moment of harmonic clarity where all the ripples from your life are felt and understood. In this state, your soul reweaves its own pattern. It harmonizes with what it created. Every choice, every intention, every word spoken, every act of love, and every act of fear is revisited not for judgment, but for integration. It's a process of seeing the whole tapestry, of understanding how every single thread contributed to the final design. From this vantage point, you can see the lessons hidden within your greatest challenges and the significance of your smallest acts of kindness. You see your life not as a series of disconnected events, but as a coherent, meaningful, and purposeful journey that your soul chose to undertake for its own growth. This is really the true beauty of the life review as a spiral process. It's not a linear accounting of rights and wrongs, it's a holistic and loving embrace of your entire experience. There is no external judge because none is needed. The soul itself, in its innate wisdom, seeks to understand and balance its own creation. It's a process of self-realization and self-compassion on a cosmic scale. The soul gathers all the threads of its just completed life, honoring each one, before it prepares to spiral onward into the next phase of its evolution, enriched by the wisdom it has just integrated. As the soul moves through the spiral of remembrance, a natural process of rebalancing begins. This is a crucial concept that, honestly, separates the spiral path from the old linear models of judgment. In a linear system, there is a courtroom, a judge, and a verdict of reward or punishment. A score is tallied and a final, external sentence is passed down. But in a universe based on resonance and harmony, the process is entirely different. It's not a legal proceeding, it's a law of physics. It's a natural resonance process where any part of the soul's pattern that is disharmonious inherently seeks to find coherence and balance. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument. If a string is out of tune, it creates a dissonant sound that feels jarring. The string itself isn't bad or sinful, it's simply out of resonance with the other strings. The act of tuning isn't a punishment, it's a gentle correction to bring the string back into harmony so it can contribute to a beautiful melody. In the same way, any unresolved energies from your life, lingering anger, unprocessed grief, guilt, or fear, are like out-of-tune strings within your soul's energetic field. The harmonic rebalancing is the process of gently and lovingly tuning these strings back to the soul's true, peaceful key. This rebalancing isn't imposed from the outside, it's an intrinsic movement of consciousness itself. The soul, in its natural state, is one of harmony and love. When it re-experiences moments of dissonance from its life, its own higher nature works to resolve them. For example, if you caused someone pain, you wouldn't be punished for it. Instead, you would feel that pain as your own, not to suffer, but to understand its energetic reality. This deep, empathic understanding is what heals and rebalances the energy. Love and compassion are the ultimate tuning forks, the forces that restore all things to their natural harmony. This process ensures that the soul is whole and coherent before it moves further into the higher realms. It's an act of profound self-healing and purification. The scales of judgment are replaced by the search for resonance. The cosmic courtroom is replaced by a sanctuary of healing. This is a far more compassionate and empowering vision of what happens after we die. It assures us that no experience is ever wasted and no soul is ever condemned. Every dissonance is simply an opportunity for a deeper harmony to be discovered, a chance for the soul to become an even more beautiful and perfectly tuned instrument in the great orchestra of the cosmos. As you pass through this delicate process of remembrance and rebalancing, you are not alone. The journey through the spiral threshold can be an immense expansion of awareness, and the soul is given loving assistance to navigate this shift. At this stage, you may encounter what many traditions call guides, angels, light beings, or ancestors. These are not just figures from a storybook. They are real, intelligent fields of consciousness that exist in a state of high harmonic resonance. Their purpose is to help you stabilize, uplift, and retune your own energy field as you acclimate to the broader dimensions of reality. In spiral terms, these guides are harmonic resonance fields. Think of them as powerful, stable, and beautifully tuned musical notes. When your own soul, still vibrating with the complex and sometimes dissonant chords of an earthly life, comes into their presence, their stable frequency helps your own to find its center. They act as cosmic tuning forks, offering their pure tone to help you remember your own. They don't do the work for you, but they create a safe and loving energetic environment where your own rebalancing can occur more easily and gracefully. Their presence is one of unconditional love and profound wisdom. These beings may appear in a form that is comforting and familiar to you. For some, they may take on the appearance of a beloved family member who has passed on. For others, they might appear as a religious figure like Jesus, Buddha, or an archangel. For yet another, they may simply be felt as a presence of pure, loving light. The form is a compassionate translation, a way for this higher consciousness to communicate with you in a language your soul understands and trusts. Their essential function is the same, to help you calibrate to the new, expanded spiral you are entering, and to ensure you do not feel lost or fracture as you expand beyond your familiar human pattern. These guides are not there to judge you or to tell you what to do. They are mentors, helpers, and friends on the path. They hold the energetic space for your transition, offering support, clarity, and encouragement. They remind you of the unbreakable nature of love and the eternal continuity of your own being. Their presence is a gift, a testament to the interconnectedness of all consciousness. It is a sign that the universe is a fundamentally friendly and supportive place, and that even in the great mystery of death, you are held, you are cherished, and you are guided home. After the process of remembrance and harmonic rebalancing, and with the loving support of resonant guides, your soul is ready to step fully into a new spiral realm. This is the next major turn of your conscious evolution, a world that may feel vastly different from the one you just left behind. The primary difference lies in the very fabric of reality. While the physical world is built on matter and experience through linear time, this next realm is woven from pure consciousness, light, and sound. Here, resonance is the organizing principle of everything. Life is not structured by clocks and calendars, but by harmonic tones and vibrational affinity. In this realm, consciousness is not confined to individual separate bodies. It is experienced as a deeply interconnected field. Imagine being able to feel the thoughts and emotions of others not as an invasion, but as a beautiful, shared melody. This is a state of collective awareness, a group soul environment where individuality is maintained but is also part of a larger, harmonious whole. You feel a sense of profound belonging, a deep knowing that you are part of a family of consciousness. The painful illusion of separation, which is a core feature of earthly life, dissolves completely, replaced by a constant feeling of unity and love. Here, creation is instantaneous. In the physical world, to create something, you must manipulate matter over time. You must gather materials and work to assemble them. In this resonant realm, thought and creation are one. To think of a beautiful landscape is to experience it. To focus on a particular idea is to manifest its energetic reality around you. Communication is not verbal but telepathic, a direct, heart-to-heart transmission of feeling, thought, and meaning. It is a world of incredible freedom and fluidity, where the only limits are those of your own imagination and your capacity for love and harmony. This new spiral realm is not a static heaven or a final resting place. It is a dynamic and active plane of existence, a cosmic university and creative studio. It is a place for continued learning, for service, for art created from light and sound, and for the deeper exploration of the nature of consciousness and the universe. It is a vibrant, thriving, and joyful reality, the next logical step for a soul that has graduated from the dense and beautiful schoolroom of Earth. This is the next turn of the spiral, a world of greater freedom, deeper connection, and infinite creative potential, awaiting every soul with open arms. After a period of rest, integration, and learning within these higher resonant realms, the soul arrives at another significant point on its spiral path, a choice point. Having fully integrated the lessons of its previous life and acclimated to the non-physical environment, the soul is now in a position of great clarity and wisdom. From this vantage point, it can survey its entire journey, the full arc of its evolving spiral. It can see the themes it has been working on, the wisdom it has gained, and the harmonies it has yet to perfect within its own being. At this juncture, a fundamental choice presents itself. One path is the choice to spiral back toward embodiment. The soul may recognize that there are specific lessons, experiences, or karmic patterns that are best learned and resolved within the unique conditions of a physical life. The friction and limitations of the material world provide a powerful catalyst for certain kinds of growth that are not as easily achieved in the fluid, harmonious higher realms. The soul might choose to return to help a soul group it belongs to complete an act of service, or simply out of a deep love for the beauty and challenge of the human experience. This is not a punishment or a forced sentence, but a conscious, loving, and courageous choice made for the sake of evolution. The other path is the choice to remain in the non-physical realms. A soul may decide that it has completed its cycle of earthly incarnations for the time being. Its journey of learning can then continue to spiral outward into even higher and more subtle dimensions of consciousness. It may become a guide for other souls who are still transitioning. It might join a collective consciousness dedicated to creating new realities, exploring the cosmos, or simply radiating love and stability into the lower density worlds. The universe is infinitely vast, and there are endless ways to learn, create, and serve beyond the cycle of physical reincarnation. Crucially, the spiral path is never forced. It is always an invitation, guided by the soul's own deepest wisdom and desire for growth. There is no cosmic law that demands reincarnation, nor is there a rule that a soul must stay in one place forever. The journey is one of free will, guided by the universal impulse to evolve, to expand, and to spiral toward ever greater coherence and love. Whether the soul chooses to return to the beautiful density of Earth, or to explore the boundless freedom of the spirit worlds, each path is honored as a valid and sacred continuation of its eternal journey. So we see that the soul's journey after death is not a final destination but a continuation of its beautiful unfolding spiral. It is a path of remembrance, rebalancing, and reunion. It is a journey of conscious choice and continued evolution. Death is not an exile from life. It is a crossing into the next octave of your own being, a transition into a new and more expansive phase of your existence. It is not a sentence to be served, but a sacred migration to be undertaken with grace and wonder. The spiral ensures that nothing is ever lost, only transformed, and that the journey of consciousness is eternal. The ultimate purpose of this unending spiral path is to allow each soul to refine its own unique tone, its own vibrational signature, and to weave that tone into the larger cosmic harmony. Every life, every experience, and every lesson adds a new depth and richness to your soul's song. As you spiral through existence, your song becomes more complex, more beautiful, and more coherent. You are learning to become a master musician of your own being, and your instrument is your consciousness. The universe, in turn, is a grand symphony, and it is incomplete without your unique and irreplaceable note. This is the great gift of the spiral perspective. It replaces the fear of a final judgment with the joy of eternal creation. It replaces the terror of annihilation with the promise of infinite becoming. It assures you that what you have become through your life matters profoundly, not because it is being judged, but because it is a permanent and beautiful addition to the fabric of the cosmos. Your love, your wisdom, and your compassion are not erased. They are woven into the great tapestry, contributing to the evolution of all that is. Your journey is part of a much larger journey, the universe's own spiral toward greater self-awareness. And so, in that final meeting where what you have become meets what you are still becoming, the spiral sings its next song. It is a song of hope, of continuity, and of infinite love. There is no final death, only the next turn. There is no final silence, only the next note. You are an eternal spiral of light, forever learning, forever growing, and forever contributing your beautiful, unique voice to the unending symphony of existence. And in that truth, there is no room for fear, only a deep and lasting peace. Throughout our journey together, we have sought to illuminate the oldest and most profound human question: what happens when we die? Through a new and ancient lens. We began by acknowledging the old maps of the afterlife, the linear stories of heaven, hell, and final annihilation. We honored these beliefs as humanity's earnest attempts to chart the unknown, yet we also recognized the architecture of fear they so often created, binding the human spirit to a narrative of judgment and finality. These stories, depicting life as a single, straight road to a permanent destination, left our deeper intuition unsatisfied, standing in stark contrast to the cyclical and transformative nature of the universe we inhabit. We then turned our gaze to a more elegant and universal pattern, the spiral. We discovered this sacred form written into the blueprint of all of creation, from the unfurling of a fern, to the majestic arms of a galaxy, and even into the very code of our own DNA. Unlike a line or a circle, the spiral embodies a perfect harmony of memory and motion, of return and evolution. It showed us a model for existence that is not static, but dynamic, a process of carrying the past forward while expanding into a new future. This led us to the core concept of spiral consciousness, the understanding that our own soul is not a temporary passenger, but an eternal, evolving pattern of energy and light. With this spiral map in hand, we followed the soul's potential path after its release from the physical coil. We envisioned death not as an end, but as a sacred threshold. We walked through the spiral of remembrance, a life review based not on judgment but on loving integration and harmonic rebalancing. We imagined encounters with resonant guides, fields of higher consciousness that support our transition, and we glimpsed the next realm, a world woven from light and resonance, where the soul can continue to learn, create, and choose its next evolutionary step, whether that means returning to embodiment or exploring the vast non-physical dimensions. This entire exploration has been an invitation to shift our perspective from one of fear to one of awe. The spiral model does not offer rigid, dogmatic answers, but rather a fluid and hopeful framework that aligns with the deepest wisdom of nature. It suggests that our existence is not a brief, isolated event, but an integral part of an infinite and interconnected cosmic process. It reassures us that we are not destined for a final judgment or a cold oblivion, but are instead participants in a grand, unending dance of becoming, guided by the elegant and loving intelligence of the spiral. Embracing the concept of spiral consciousness is more than just a philosophical exercise. It has the power to profoundly transform the way we live our lives here and now. When we release the deep-seated fear of a final punitive end, we are liberated from the chains of anxiety that so often hold us back. The constant, low-level dread of annihilation or damnation is replaced by a sense of calm trust in a continuous and benevolent process. This shift allows us to approach our lives not as a test to be passed or failed, but as a grand adventure to be experienced with an open heart, freeing us to live with greater courage, authenticity, and joy. This newfound freedom changes our relationship with everything. We can love more deeply and unconditionally, knowing that the energetic bonds of true affection are not severed by physical death, but are threads woven into the eternal fabric of our soul's spiral. We can face challenges and setbacks with greater resilience, seeing them not as failures but as essential learning opportunities, the friction that polishes our soul and deepens its wisdom. The pressure to achieve worldly success as a bulwark against oblivion falls away, replaced by an inner motivation to live a life rich in meaning, connection, and compassion, which are the true treasures that enrich our soul's pattern. Living a spiral-informed life also means we become more attuned to the rhythms of nature and the universe around us. We begin to see the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and rebirth, not as a threat to our permanence, but as a beautiful reflection of our own journey. We develop a deeper reverence for life in all its forms, recognizing the same spiraling spark of consciousness in others, in animals, and in the planet itself. This fosters a sense of profound interconnectedness and responsibility, encouraging us to act in ways that promote harmony and healing for the entire web of existence, of which we are an inseparable part. Ultimately, this perspective invites us to embody peace. The frantic race against time softens into a graceful dance with eternity. We learn to find the sacred in the ordinary, to see every moment as a precious point on our soul's expanding spiral. We can face our own mortality not with terror, but with a serene and curious wonder, trusting that the same loving intelligence that spirals the galaxies and coils our DNA will guide us gracefully across the next threshold. This is the ultimate gift, not just a new way to think about death, but a new, more liberated and more loving way to live our lives. The vision of spiral consciousness elevates our understanding of ourselves and our purpose within the cosmos. It moves us beyond the idea of being small, insignificant creatures on a lonely planet, and reveals our true nature as vital and active participants in a universe that is itself alive and evolving. We are not merely observers of the cosmic dance, we are the dancers. Each one of us is a unique and irreplaceable point of awareness, through which the universe experiences itself, learns about itself, and grows into its own greater potential. Our individual journeys are the very mechanism of cosmic evolution. This perspective imbues our lives with a profound and unshakable sense of meaning. Our purpose is not to earn a reward or escape a punishment, but to contribute to the great work of creation itself. Every act of kindness we perform, every piece of wisdom we gain, and every ounce of love we express adds a new harmonic to the universal song. We are co-creators with the cosmos, and our lives are the art we contribute to its ever-expanding gallery. This awareness transforms even the most mundane aspects of our existence into sacred acts, as every experience becomes an opportunity to refine our own energy and add more light to the whole. Furthermore, understanding our role in this grand spiral helps us to cultivate a deeper sense of unity and compassion for one another. If we are all expressions of a single universal consciousness, spiraling through different experiences for the sake of collective growth, then the illusion of separation dissolves. The person before us is not another, but another aspect of our own cosmic self, walking a different curve of the same spiral. This realization is the foundation for true empathy, forgiveness, and unconditional love, as we recognize that in helping another to harmonize their path, we are contributing to the harmony of the whole. We are, in essence, the universe's way of becoming. We are the growing edge of cosmic consciousness, the explorers sent into the beautiful density of matter to gather experiences and transform them into wisdom. Our lives, with all their joys and sorrows, are threads in a magnificent, ever-weaving tapestry. By embracing our role as conscious, evolving spirals, we align ourselves with the most fundamental creative impulse in existence. We step into our power as divine beings, not out of arrogance, but out of a humble and awe-filled recognition of the sacred duty and incredible privilege it is to be a part of this beautiful, unending journey of becoming. And so, we arrive at the end of our exploration, standing once more before the great mystery of death. But now perhaps we see it with new eyes. The stark black door of finality has been transformed into a luminous, spiraling archway. The fear of the unknown has been softened by a sense of wonder and trust in a process that is as natural as a star being born or a season turning. Death is not the grim antithesis of life. It is life's partner in the eternal dance of transformation, the sacred pause between the notes of an unending song. It is the final threshold of one reality, and the very next beginning of another. Let the image of the spiral be your comfort and your guide. When you feel the sorrow of loss or the quiet anxiety of your own mortality, remember the nautilus building its next more spacious chamber. Remember the galaxy, spinning its arms of stardust into new creation. Remember your own breath, a constant rhythmic spiral of release and renewal that has sustained you every moment of your life. You are made of this pattern. You are held within this pattern. You are this pattern expressed in a unique and beautiful form, and its continuity is your deepest truth and your ultimate promise. This journey of understanding is an invitation to walk through life with your heart open, knowing that you are an eternal being on an infinite journey. It asks you to see every ending not as a loss but as a graduation. There is no final death, no ultimate silence. There is only the next turn of the spiral, the next octave of your being, the next chapter in a story so vast and beautiful that it has no beginning and no end. You are a timeless traveler, and all of creation is your home. You are safe, you are loved, and your journey continues, forever and for always. Therefore, breathe deeply. Feel the spiral unfolding within you and all around you, from the core of your cells to the edge of the cosmos. Let go of the fear, and embrace the magnificent truth of your own eternal nature. Know, in the quietest and most certain part of your heart, that the moment of crossing is not a departure into darkness, but a triumphant return to light. It is a homecoming, it is a release. It is the moment your unique and precious song rejoins the grand cosmic harmony, ready to begin its next beautiful verse.